My name is Olivia. I'm 32 years old, currently working as a financial analyst in Charleston, South Carolina. After 6 exhausting days at the office, I drove more than 2 hours to my beach house getaway, the only place I consider my safe territory. I worked relentlessly for 8 years to earn it. But that day, the moment I turned onto the white stone drive leading to the yard, my heart nearly dropped out of my chest. On the back lawn, over 100 strangers were setting up a massive stage, flashing lights, and giant speakers pounding test bass so hard the windows shook. And right in the middle of the chaos stood my sister Lily, dressed in a sparkling short white dress, holding a glass of champagne, shouting to a film crew, "Perfect! This will be the engagement party of the century. Thanks, sis, for letting us use the house." I froze. I had never agreed to anything. I had no idea more than 150 invitations had already been sent out, printed with my exact address, as if my house were some sponsored event venue. Have you ever had your own family ignore your boundaries? Seen the home you worked yourself ragged to buy turned into someone else's stage? If you've ever felt that way, leave a comment below. Hit like and subscribe if you want to follow the rest of this story, because what happened after was even worse than what you've just heard. I watched Lily beaming in the center of the yard, lights glittering off her gauzy white dress. Test music thumped from the speakers. Wine was being poured down a long table covered in white cloth. No one looked my way. No one imagined I'd walk in at this moment. They thought my absence was natural, just as I'd been left out of the picture frames all through childhood. I stepped back, pushing past strangers, rushing to hang streamers and string bulbs for the engagement party of the century. The sky was still blue, the ocean breeze still swayed the palms, but inside my chest it felt like a boulder pressed down. Each step crunched over old memories I thought I had buried. I'm not one to hold grudges, but I don't forget easily. Lily was always the golden girl of the family. That was the phrase my mother used when introducing her. Blonde hair, bright eyes, a honey-sweet voice. She sang beautifully, danced gracefully, laughed like sunlight. And me? I was Olivia, the quiet older sister, a little distant, but smart. At dinner once, my father said it plainly. "Lily brings the joy. Olivia, you take care of the practical things." My mother nodded, dropping extra vegetables into my bowl like a silent reward for being the dependable eldest. At 16, I earned a full scholarship to a summer finance program at Brown University. But airfare was expensive, housing wasn't cheap, and my mother told me I should let Lily attend a dance program in San Diego. Instead, she has a natural gift, while finance you can teach yourself. So I nodded. At 18, I worked 2 part-time jobs to buy a used car so Lily could get to classes while she had her sweet 16 celebrated at a fancy restaurant because you only turn 16 once. I said nothing. I went to college on scholarship, worked as a teaching assistant, then landed a banking job right after graduation. Meanwhile, Lily spent 2 years in Paris on an art exchange, most of her airfare and living expenses quietly covered by me, funneling money through our parents to ease the financial pressure at home. Whenever I came back for visits, Lily was met at the airport. I rented my own car. Whenever I got promoted, I received just a short text. "Congrats, dear, Olivia is always hardworking." But when Lily sang at a small charity event, the whole family blasted Facebook with, "Our golden daughter." 3 years ago, I bought this beach house after burning out on 3 back-to-back financial restructuring projects. The day I held the keys, I invited the family to celebrate. My mother walked in, glanced around, and said, "This place is too big for one person. The whole family should share it, Olivia." Lily squealed. "Oh my God, do you know how perfect this view is? I could have my wedding here." I smiled, stiff and hollow. I once believed that if I was kind enough, they would see. That if I gave once, twice, 10 times, one day they'd say, "Thank you, Olivia." But that day never came. Back to the present, I stepped onto the porch, unlocked the door to my house, though it no longer felt like mine. In the kitchen, two strangers were setting a cake on the counter, chatting loudly. One glanced at me and asked carelessly, "Are you with the decorating crew?" I didn't answer. I went straight upstairs, where the photos I'd taken of seaside walks had been stripped off the walls, replaced by a giant event timeline. On my desk sat a printed guest list. At the bottom, in bold script, venue, Olivia's Beach House, a paradise generously loaned by Lily's loving sister. No one had asked me, no call, no text. Lily walked in behind me, holding a short cream-colored dress. "Sis, didn't I say you'd be surprised? Isn't this amazing? Brandon says you'll definitely be proud to see me so happy." I turned to look at her. Not angry, not sad, just empty. "You used my house without asking?" She shrugged. "I was going to tell you, but if I told you beforehand you'd get stressed. And you stress so easily." I looked straight into her eyes. The same carefree look she had when she begged me to skip tutoring to drive her to auditions. The same look when she borrowed my credit card to buy a dress, saying, "You never use it anyway, I'll just borrow it." "The invitations have my address printed," I said, holding one from the desk. "You call that borrowing? Well, I figured you'd understand. And can you check the catering list for me? Mom says you have better taste." I put the invitation down, straightened my back, and walked out of the room without another word. I had been silent for 32 years. Maybe it was time to speak. I walked down the hall, the soft thud of my shoes on the wooden floorboards I had chosen piece by piece. The ocean breeze slipped through the window, carrying that briny scent I used to love so much I'd stand for hours on the balcony just to breathe it in. But that afternoon it brought no peace. I opened the back door to the yard that used to be mine alone. I had planted each lavender bush along the fence, placed a wicker chair beside the stone lantern, spent every Sunday afternoon reading a book with waves rolling in. Now everything was buried. Tables and chairs everywhere, string lights tangled overhead, wedding flowers covering the paths. Two men measured stage dimensions. A stranger with a clipboard brushed past me, talking into her headset. "Center post should go by the flower bed on the left. Leave space for the VIP walkway." The left side? That was where I had a rare Arizona cactus that had taken 2 years to bloom once. "What are you doing?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She glanced up politely. "I'm the event assistant. You're a friend of Lily's? Don't worry, everything will be done before 6 p.m. tomorrow. Once the stage is up, you can add the final touches." I gave a dry laugh, not bothering to explain. I turned back into the kitchen, once neat to my rhythm. Sugar jar beside the coffee machine, glasses inverted on a wooden tray, hand-embroidered towels folded in the third drawer. Now, chaos. Pink pastel tablecloths over the counters, disposable cups printed with Lily and Brandon scattered everywhere, the fridge ajar, stuffed with champagne and pre-cut fruit. A printed sign read, "Prep zone, do not touch." "Olivia, there you are." Lily burst in, grabbing my hand as if nothing had happened. "I need you to approve the dessert menu," Mom says. "You have the better palate." I pulled my hand away, quietly shutting the fridge. "Who gave you permission to turn my house into your venue?" She blinked, stepped back a little, but still smiled. "I just borrowed it. You know I couldn't find anywhere else this perfect. And it's free." I stood silent. Not because I had nothing to say, because if I spoke, I might not hold back. "Lily," I said, "do you know what it took for me to have this house?" She shrugged. "You're good at your job, you make money, you bought it. Mom always said you're smarter than most." I laughed, but it sounded bitter. I worked 12-hour days at the bank, I said, eyes locked on hers. No vacations for 5 years. No boyfriend, no birthdays. Not a single Sunday sleeping past 8 a.m. You think the price of a beach house is just money? But you're hardly ever here, Lily snapped. You come on weekends, maybe a couple times a month. The place just sits empty. I walked closer, voice even. Not being here all the time doesn't make it yours. No one has the right to treat another person's home like their playground just because the owner isn't around. I thought. Lily's eyes darted nervously. Mom said you wouldn't object. That you always give in if the family needs something. I froze for a beat. Suddenly, everything was clear. I stepped out of the kitchen, down the stairs where I'd once hung a seascape painting. It was gone. In its place, a framed photo of Lily and Brandon laughing on my beach, under the words, "Where it all begins." On the table below sat a stack of wedding invitations, half addressed, half blank. I picked one up. You are invited to the engagement of Lily and Brandon, hosted at Olivia's beach house. Not Olivia's private home, not her retreat, but branded like a destination. A place on a map. The only sanctuary I had was renamed, claimed, turned into a backdrop for someone else's fairy tale. My mother walked in then, arms full of fake hydrangeas. "Oh, you're here already? Why didn't you tell us?" I kept my voice calm. "Because I thought this house was mine. I didn't think I had to ask permission to use my own keys." She set the bag down, avoiding my eyes, arranging flowers on the table. "We just wanted to surprise Lily. Can't you be flexible? After all, we're family." I looked at the two women before me, one who pretended not to see my sacrifices, one who treated them as owed. And in that moment, I wasn't angry anymore. I just saw it clearly. It was time to take back what was mine. No shouting, no tears, no scenes. Just putting everything back in its rightful place. Who belongs where? What belongs to whom? I stood at the living room window, staring out at the yard where test music shook the glass. Wedding chairs lined in rows, string lights crisscrossed overhead, fresh flowers piled high, burying the orchids I had tended for 2 seasons. Beneath the porch, a crew was mounting a giant backdrop of Lily and Brandon, emblazoned with "A night to remember, thanks to Olivia's beach house." The word thanks sparkled in silver, as if my existence was just glitter on their fairy tale. I opened my phone and scrolled through Instagram. Lily's profile was overflowing with photos of the party prep. In a video posted less than 2 hours earlier, she beamed at the camera, a champagne glass in hand. "My sister is the best. She didn't just lend me her house, she's been totally supportive so I can have the perfect engagement party. Everyone, please send your thanks to Olivia." Hundreds of comments sat beneath the post. "Wow, your sister's an angel. So admirable. Everyone deserves a sister like Olivia. Not everyone knows how to share. You're so lucky." I clenched the phone tighter. No one but me knew the truth behind all that praise. Not a single word was real. A knock at the door broke my thoughts. I turned. Brandon stood on the porch, sleeves rolled up, with a slightly awkward smile. "Can we talk for a minute?" I opened the door. I didn't invite him in, but I didn't shut him out either. He stepped inside, avoiding my eyes, running a hand through his hair. "Olivia, I know. I should have asked you first," he said quietly. "I told Lily this needed to be discussed, but she insisted you wouldn't mind." I crossed my arms, staring at him. "How would you feel if your house was used for a wedding without anyone asking you?" He gave a weak laugh. "I probably wouldn't like it." "Exactly," I replied, my voice calm but cold. "No one likes being treated as invisible, especially in their own home." Brandon nodded, hesitated, then said, I know you've put so much into this place. Honestly, I've always felt uneasy, like things were going too far. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled one of the invitations from the drawer near the door. Have you seen this? He took it, glanced at the bold print, and exhaled. I didn't think they'd print your full address. It looks like this house is community property for your whole family. Isn't that what they all think? I raised an eyebrow. My sister, my parents, her friends, even the internet. Everyone calls me the amazing sister, but no one ever asked me once. Brandon stayed quiet. I could see his discomfort in every small move, hands tightening, eyes looking away. Do you know how much tax I pay every quarter? I haul my own trash, fix the roof myself, pay the water bill every month. They just come and go, leaving behind a mess and empty compliments on social media. He set the card back on the table. I'll talk to Lily. We'll figure something out. I nodded lightly, but inside I expected nothing. I had long since stopped waiting for others to do the right thing for me. After he left, I opened my laptop to check. Emails. Amid dozens of work messages, one stood out from the bank's internal communications team, congratulating me on being nominated for head of portfolio development. I wasn't surprised, but the happiness barely registered. Not one person in my family had ever asked me what I actually did for work. To them, I was just the sister who's good with numbers. Lily was the star, the one remembered, the one praised for bringing laughter to the family. I stepped onto the balcony, looking down at the yard. They were still setting up tents, stretching tarps, testing lights. No one asked if I needed quiet, no one imagined I might show up midweek. They treated my house like a free rental hall, and me as the unpaid staff. I walked down the steps and picked up a fallen wooden sign near the fence. Painted in white letters, private prep area, keep out unless you're with Lily's team. I turned it over in my hands, then tossed it straight into the outdoor trash bin. People might think I'm meek, quiet, easy to forgive, but if anyone paid attention, they'd see I'm calculated, and when I've stayed silent too long, it means I already have a plan. Back in my bedroom, I locked the door and sat on the bed's edge. Outside, sound checks pounded from the speakers, laughter buzzed like this house had never been my retreat. I flipped open my laptop again but couldn't focus. My fingers drifted toward the old family group chat, the Bennetts, once tied to our shared landline days. I used to be a member. At some point, they stopped adding me. I hadn't even realized until today. The members list glowed on the screen. Mom, Dad, Lily, Aunt Marilyn, Uncle Rick, Chloe, cousin, and a few others. My name wasn't there. I dug through my iCloud backups for old synced conversations. When I pulled one up, my chest tightened. March 14th. Mom. Lily, are you sure you shouldn't tell your sister? Lily. If she finds out early, she'll object. I'll wait until it's all done. Then she can't stop it. Mom. Olivia won't dare refuse. She's scared of losing family. She always island. Uncle Rick. Olivia's house is gorgeous. It's a waste not to use it. Aunt Marilyn. Lily deserves a truly special engagement party. Dad. Just go ahead. If needed, Lily can say it was agreed on. I read it again and again. Not a single line asked if I was free that day. Not one wondered if I wanted it. Everything had been decided. I was just the backdrop and afterthought. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Olivia, I think this is wrong. I told Lily she should ask you first, but she kept insisting you'd agree. I'm sorry. I typed a few words, then erased them. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I was holding myself back from writing something I couldn't take back. I stood, pulled a file box from under the bed. Every document neatly kept. The purchase contract, deed, invoices for plumbing repairs, receipts for roof work after the hurricane. all handled by me. No one else had ever paid a dime. I opened the photo app. There was Lily and her friends laughing in my yard, snapped during a surprise barbecue they threw last June. When I came home the next morning, I cleaned up 17 bags of trash, soda spilled all over the wood floors, wet swimsuits tossed in the bathroom. Back then, I'd texted Mom gently, "Next time you come, please let me know in advance." Her reply, "You're too uptight. If family has to schedule, what's the point of calling it home?" I shut the laptop, breathing slow. Unconditional kindness doesn't mean accepting disrespect. I wasn't a stranger, I was their daughter, Lily's sister. Yet they chose to erase me just so they wouldn't have to hear an answer they didn't want. Another knock on the door. Without waiting for my reply, my mother came in, still wearing garden gloves, carrying the faint scent of lavender. "What are you doing hiding up here? Everyone's nearly finished setting up outside." I set the file down, not turning. "I wasn't invited. No one asked me." She paused, then sighed, placing her gloves on the shelf. "We're family, Olivia. Do you really need to be so rigid? It's just one party." I turned. One party with 150 guests, a stage, printed invitations with my address, and a group chat I wasn't even in. She blinked, voice softening. "We didn't want to pressure you." I narrowed my eyes. Didn't want to pressure me, or didn't want to give me a chance to say no. She said nothing. I pulled up the old chat backup on my phone and handed it to her. She scrolled until she hit the line. "She's scared of losing family." "Am I just the peacekeeper's shadow?" I asked. "Because I don't throw fits, does that mean what I think doesn't matter?" She set the phone down, whispering, "You've always been the strong one, Olivia." I smiled, bitter. Strength isn't letting yourself be hurt again and again without fighting back. Silence. I didn't wait for more. I pulled another folder from the drawer, sliding out a contract draft. "Tomorrow I'll contact my lawyer, and I've already lined up a third party to rent the house this weekend. The contract is set to be signed in 3 days." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said slowly, clearly, "no one uses my house without written permission. From now on, there's no such thing as shared family property." She stepped back. The room fell strangely quiet. Then she left without another word. The door shut, leaving me alone in the space that had long been treated like public property. No screaming, no tears. Just the sound of waves outside and the steady beat of my own heart. I felt like I was truly standing in my own home, not because I held the keys, but because I had reclaimed my voice. I sat at my desk, the small lamp casting light over the spread of documents. The ocean roared beyond the glass, a steady reminder of why I chose this house in the first place: peace. A place no one could intrude, no one could dictate, no one could dismiss the boundaries I fought for. On my screen was a detailed list from McCarthy and James Law. I had called them early that morning, right after the tense conversation with my mother. Abigail, the paralegal, spoke calmly, unfazed by the edge in my voice. "You want us to establish liability in case an event is held illegally on your property, correct?" I nodded, even though it was a phone call. "And confirm that if there's any property damage or accidents, you bear no financial responsibility to third parties, even relatives." "Exactly." Less than 2 hours later, Abigail sent me a draft email along with legal guidance, laying out the risks if an event were hosted without written consent from the owner. I read every line. Firm, clear, not threatening but impossible to misunderstand. I opened my family email list, gathering every relative from the Bennetts, the ones who never congratulated me on promotions, the ones who had used my house 3 times in one summer for a quick getaway. I hit send. Subject: Regarding unauthorized use of private property, 219 Pelican Way body. Hello everyone. I want to emphasize that the house at 219 Pelican Way is my personal property, purchased and maintained entirely with my own finances. I do not authorize any events, gatherings, or community activities to be held here without my written consent. Any unauthorized use will be considered trespassing. I will not be held responsible for any accidents, injuries, or property damage that may result from such actions. Anyone wishing to use this property for any purpose must contact me directly. Sincerely, Olivia Bennett. Not even 3 minutes later, my phone rang. The screen lit up. Mom. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. What did you just send to everyone? Her voice was sharp as steel. A reminder, I said. About ownership and boundaries. You're ruining your sister's event. Everything's already set. Do you have to escalate like this? There's no escalation, I replied evenly. Just the truth. I never agreed, I was never asked, and I don't owe anyone my silence. She exhaled hard, trying to stay calm. You're always so rigid, that's why you're alone. Softer people live lighter lives. I glanced out the window where the late afternoon sun fell over still palm trees. If being soft means being treated like public property, I'd rather be hard. Poor Lily, my mother continued. She's been planning for months. She says if her sister approves, her life will feel complete. I cut her off. She doesn't need my approval, she needs me to stay quiet like always. A moment later, she hung up without saying goodbye. I set the phone down and walked into the hall. I called the security company that had installed my cameras last year, asking them to upgrade the entire package. They agreed to come the next morning with new equipment, cloud storage, direct phone access, alerts whenever someone entered without authorization. That night, I changed every lock, including the back gate to the yard. The copies once given to my mother, to Lily, even to my aunt, worthless now. When I sent a photo of the new locks with a short message, I'll be the only one holding the keys. No one replied. Just 2 blue check marks, then silence. An hour later, Lily texted, "What are you doing? I can't believe you'd do this to me right before the biggest day of my life." I set the phone down without answering. I was busy drafting a short-term lease for a trade conference company out of Atlanta. They had just sent me an offer for the same weekend Lily had marked for her engagement party. They needed a quiet venue with outdoor space and beach access to host international guests. They offered $12,000 for 2 days, not including cleaning, lighting, and staff. I accepted. Not for the money. But I could decide what happened in my own house without assumption, without exploitation, without being treated like background. I signed, sent the contract and schedule, then leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath. Tomorrow, they'd arrive for a site inspection. They wouldn't be late. They were professionals. And most importantly, they were coming with my permission, no one else's. I reached the Italian restaurant about 10 minutes early, sitting in my car a while to steady myself. Through the glass, I saw the familiar details: red brick walls overgrown with ivy, wooden windows cracked open, the scent of roasted garlic and basil drifting into the air. For years, this had been the family's chosen spot for bonding dinners. At the round table by the fireplace, we'd once clapped while Lily performed High School Musical numbers. Splitting lasagna, Mom said, tasted just like Grandma's. I walked in as the clock struck 7. The host recognized me, bowed slightly, and led me to the same old table. Mom sat there, posture rigid, hands folded on a neatly pressed napkin. Dad next to her, eyes on the menu but not reading. Lily across the table, fiddling with her water glass. Aunt Marilyn scrolling on her phone. I sat down, set my bag on the chair beside me, and kept my coat on. "You came," Lily began, voice trembling. "Thank you." I didn't answer, just gave a small nod. Mom forced a smile, tension showing. Let's order. You must be tired after your early meeting today. I looked up, steady. I'm not here to eat. The table went silent for a few seconds. Mom cleared her throat, then turned to Lily. Go ahead, explain yourself. Your sister's misunderstood. Lily drew in a breath, dabbing her eyes as if rehearsed. Olivia, I didn't know you'd be this upset. I just wanted a small party with family and friends. I thought you'd understand. You sent out 150 invitations, I said. Printed my address, called it Olivia's Beach House. You turned me into a destination. I just borrowed it. Why are you making this such a big deal? This is the most important day of my life, and you ruined it. I cut in, my voice level. Then what do you call everything you and the family have done to me for the last 5 years? Dad spoke then, voice low and firm. You should reconsider your behavior. Family is for togetherness, not threatening each other with lawyers and cold emails. I stared at him. Family shouldn't treat one of their own like nameless property. He sighed, lifted his glass of water, then set it down. If you stay this stubborn, don't expect to be mentioned in the family will. Mom glanced at him like she wanted to intervene but stayed quiet. Lily hiccuped softly. I didn't react right away. Instead, I pulled my laptop from my bag and opened it. The screen lit under the restaurant's dim, golden light. I turned it toward them. Here are the full details of every expense I've paid on that house, from purchase until last month. Every maintenance bill, every tax, every plumbing repair, every gate replacement, every fire insurance payment, total $347,600. I clicked. The next page showed photos, before and after, from every unauthorized party they'd thrown. This is the lawn burn after last year's barbecue. This is the scratch on my wood floor from Lily's friend's speaker, Dolly. This is my bed where one of Lily's guests spent the night without permission. I flipped to the last entry. And here's the invoice from the cleaning service after your so-called spontaneous Thanksgiving gathering, when no one asked if I was even home. The table fell silent. I shut the laptop. I didn't come here to apologize. I came to remind you I've been silent long enough. Dad leaned back in his chair, saying nothing. Mom bit her lip. Aunt Marilyn stayed glued to her phone. Lily sat still, eyes red. I continued, voice lower. I'm not against you having an engagement party. I'm against the way you all claimed a piece of my life without asking. Olivia, Mom whispered. I stood, pulling on my coat. I've signed the lease with my client. They'll be here Saturday. If anyone in this family tries to interfere, I'll handle it legally. No one rose. No one said goodbye. I walked out, the ocean air sharp against my face, but inside I wasn't cold anymore. I didn't wait for their understanding. I didn't wait for their change of heart. All I needed was for them to see that the Olivia they knew, the silent one, the yielding one, was gone. The next morning, I woke before the sun climbed past the palms behind the house. The kitchen was quiet, only the soft pop of the coffee maker and the warm glow of the lamp on the granite counter. I left my phone untouched. Every call, every message on mute. The wooden clock struck 7. I changed into a light blouse, tied my hair back, and opened the gate just as the company van pulled up the stone drive. 3 people stepped out. A woman in her 50s, silver hair pulled neatly back, wearing a badge. Diane C. Morales, CEO, MedForum Conferences. 2 young staffers followed, carrying tablets and layout maps. Diane extended a firm hand, her smile polite but steady. Miss Bennett, thank you for having us. We're impressed with the space already. I led them through the property, pointing out where the seminar tents could go, the reception area, the underground outlets, the irrigation system to avoid. The technical crew arrived soon after, measuring, setting up signs with a Navy logo reading annual. Southeastern Med Forum, Executive Retreat. I stood in my yard watching flags ripple in the ocean breeze, steps scrubbed clean, carpets aligned, rows of chairs in place. Everything was orderly, professional. No one asked if I was sure. They were here because they were invited, because I signed. Around 10 a.m., a text buzzed in. Brandon, someone said the house is being prepped for a medical conference. Is that true? I typed back briefly. Yes, contract signed 2 weeks ago. Miss Morales is the lead. Deposit already paid. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. His name lit the screen. I answered. Olivia, you're really going to let Lily's engagement party be canceled? I didn't cancel anything. Your fiancé never asked me. She never got permission. But there's no time to move venues. They had 8 months to plan, I said, eyes on the delivery truck backing carefully onto my stone drive. Plenty of time for at least one phone call. Brandon stayed silent, then sighed. I don't even know whose side I'm supposed to be on anymore. You don't need to take sides, I answered. You just need to ask yourself, if this were the house you bought, would you feel respected? That afternoon, I received an email from MedForum's law office confirming that every clause of the contract had been executed on schedule. The remaining balance would be wired into my account by the end of the week. I closed my laptop and walked down the narrow path to the shore. The breeze was light, the waves rolling gently onto the fine sand. I remembered Sunday afternoons when I sat in this very spot alone, a cup of tea in my hand and a financial report draft balanced on my lap. No one interrupted, no one intruded. A car horn cut through the memory. I turned to see my mother stepping out of a gray sedan. She wore her usual pale blue outfit, brown leather bag in hand, her stride brisk and rigid. Olivia, she called out before reaching me. You really signed that contract? Yes, I replied without hesitation. And they're carrying it out exactly as planned. She stopped a few feet away, looking around at the property slowly transforming into a high-profile conference venue. Lily cried all morning, she said. Doesn't that break your heart? I faced her. Did it break yours when I had to clean trash after every time the family barged in uninvited? When Lily's friends slept in my guest room without asking if I was home? When I paid to repair the fence after Uncle Rick hit it with his car and left without a word? She said nothing. Her eyes dropped to her shoes, fingers tightening on her purse strap. Lily's still young. She doesn't think things through like you. Lily is 29 and about to get married. I was 28 when I drained my savings to buy this house. No one stays young forever to excuse carelessness. You're just retaliating. I'm teaching everyone how to treat me. Something you should have done long ago. Her gaze faltered, pride cracking just slightly. What do you want now? Respect and boundaries. She nodded slowly, then turned back toward her car. Her steps were no longer as sharp as when she'd arrived. Once she left, I returned to the house where Medforum's team had just finished erecting the entrance arch. The sign read, Executive Leadership, hosted at Olivia Bennett's estate, glowing under the slant of the afternoon Sunday. For the first time in months, I felt no anger, no exhaustion. I felt present in the place that truly belonged to me, not as the considerate sister, but as the owner, the decision maker, the only voice behind this door. The sky wasn't fully bright yet, but the air outside my house was no longer quiet. Trucks idled, metal clanged, voices and laughter echoed through the grounds. I pulled the curtains and looked down at the yard. Medforum staff were on time. Equipment trucks parked neatly along the drive, the reception area set under a white canopy, my name faintly watermarked on the welcome sign by the gate. While I brewed coffee, my phone rang again and again. I didn't need to check the caller ID. I let it buzz, then silenced it completely. Around 8 a.m., I heard tires crunching at the side entrance. From the balcony, I saw my mother's familiar SUV pull up. The back door opened, unloading boxes of wedding flowers. Aunt Marilyn followed in a cream dress, clipboard in hand. Not far behind, Lily appeared in sequined heels and a glittering dress. Her face was tense, but she forced a radiant smile. Two men pushed a cart carrying a three-tier wedding cake draped in white cloth. I stood still at the railing, waiting. On the lawn, one of Medforum's supervisors walked toward them. He wore a black cap, clipboard in hand, accompanied by a uniformed security guard. "Good morning," he said politely but firmly. "Are you listed as registered attendees for this conference?" Lily frowned. "We're family. This is my sister's house. Today is my engagement party." The supervisor glanced at the sign by the gate. "This is the Medforum conference venue. We hold exclusive rights for 3 full days, including today. We've been instructed to guarantee absolute privacy for all guests and sponsors." My mother stepped forward, her tone sharper than usual. "We're not causing trouble. We just need to set up a few things. Tonight is a family celebration. It won't interfere with anything." The guard stepped closer, still professional. "I'm sorry, but anyone not on the authorized list cannot remain on the premises. This is private property under legal lease." Lily laughed bitterly. "My sister can't possibly have the right to do this. This is family property." I descended the stairs then, slow enough that everyone turned to watch. Lily spun toward me as though spotting a traitor in battle. "What are you doing?" she cried, voice cracking. "Do you really want to humiliate me today?" I didn't answer immediately. I nodded to the security staff, then looked at my sister standing in the yard like an actress cut from the play. "No one humiliated you," I said. "You chose to plan everything without asking. What's happening now is consequence, not sabotage." "I invited 150 people. They're already on their way." "I hired a band, caterers, flowers, a wedding cake, a gown. Everything's waiting in those trucks." I nodded. "And not one of those things has the consent of the person who owns the venue." My mother stepped in, her face edged with panic. "Olivia, let the party go on. Just for tonight. We're family." My eyes stayed steady. Family doesn't plot behind a daughter's back, keep secrets, then blame her when it unravels. Another vehicle arrived. Logos of a medical media company were plastered on its side, loaded with cameras, flags, and boxes of brochures. Guests in suits, wearing name badges, stepped out, greeting staff, grabbing coffee cups, heading into the event. Lily stared at the scene, stunned. "They won't fill the place. I'll host mine out front. I don't need the whole house." The guard raised a hand, blocking her path. "I'm sorry, you may not enter. Please leave the premises." Brandon had arrived by then, standing a few yards away. He looked at me, then at Lily. His voice was low but firm. "Lily, we should go." She blinked at him, confused. "What are you saying?" "I told you before you handled this wrong. Your sister has been more than patient. Today isn't about blaming her. It's about you taking responsibility." Lily froze. She looked from Mom to Aunt Marilyn, then back at me, hoping I'd soften. But I no longer lived in that role. After several tense moments, they quietly withdrew, the wedding cake pushed back into the SUV. A few early guests lingered outside, murmuring, one snapping a photo before leaving. The lavender scent drifted back in on the ocean breeze as the gate closed. The noise was gone. Inside, Medforum's tech team tested the sound system. The microphone crackled softly, proof everything was working as promised. I stepped toward the porch, where the event sign was being adjusted into place. Medforum Conference, hosted by Olivia Bennett. No one interfered, no one misnamed me, no one questioned if I was sure, and for the first time in years, I walked into my home without lowering my head to make space for someone else. That afternoon, while Medforum carried on with sessions in the back garden, I sat in my office reviewing backup clips from last month's security cameras. I hadn't planned to make them public. At first, the cameras were just for safety. But after being branded cruel, ungrateful, and selfish, I no longer saw a reason to stay silent. That evening, a message from Brandon appeared. I want to meet, not to argue. I just need to understand everything. I replied with the address of McCarthy and James Law, the firm holding copies of my property deeds, bank transfers, and camera data. If he wanted the truth, I'd show him in a way no one could deny. We met at 7 p.m. in a second-floor conference room. Warm yellow lights glowed over the walnut table, everything so orderly it made the air feel heavier. Brandon wore a pale blue shirt, tie loosened, his face tired but eyes alert. He sat across from me, setting his phone on the table. "I think I understand," he began, but maybe I never really did. I nodded, opened my laptop, and shared the screen. "This is June 9th, I said, pulling up a daytime recording. My mother brought 4 unfamiliar women into the house. One of them was holding a glass of red wine. And here, I fast-forwarded, they're in my bedroom. My mother opens a drawer, points at the photo I keep beside my bed, and says something that makes the whole group burst out laughing." Brandon stayed quiet, his face shifting slightly. "Next is July 14th. Lily used the duplicate key my mother kept and led 2 of her friends inside. One was in a swimsuit, the other carrying bags. They went straight upstairs and stayed overnight. I wasn't home. I skipped to August 2nd. Here's proof Lily stole my credit card information. I only found out when I got the bill from a bridal rental service in Savannah." I pulled up the statement, showing the transactions in detail. The charges were verified with the CVV number on the back of my card. That card was in my desk drawer. In this house. No one had any right to touch it. Brandon rubbed his forehead and sat in silence for a long while. I kept going, my voice firm. I tried to keep this quiet, not out of fear. I thought I could preserve peace. But the more I stayed silent, the further they pushed. He looked at me, his voice hoarse. "Why didn't you say something sooner? Why let it go this far?" "Because I used to believe that being the oldest meant I had to sacrifice. But sacrifice doesn't earn respect. It only teaches people how to disregard boundaries." Brandon lowered his head. "I'm sorry. This past week, I let myself get swept up by Lily's emotions. She kept saying you were cold and never willing to bend. I believed her. I didn't blame him. I simply closed my laptop and said softly, 'No one likes to tell the truth about someone they love, especially when the truth makes them ashamed.'" Brandon sat up straighter, but his voice cracked. "I won't marry someone who can't respect boundaries. Not just boundaries with you, but boundaries with herself." He stood, pulled his phone from his pocket, and typed quickly. I didn't look, but I could guess who he was messaging. At the door, he paused. "You've shown me something I never considered before. Not everyone who speaks up to protect themselves is causing division. Sometimes they're the only ones holding the family together." I said nothing, only watched him leave under the hallway light. That night, Lily called over and over, but I didn't pick up. By the 6th call, I powered my phone off entirely. My mother sent a message nearly 400 words long, packed with accusations, phrases like overboard, disrespectful, no longer family. At the end, one final line. "From now on, don't expect us to consider you part of this family." I sat at the window, the warm yellow glow spilling onto the stone patio, the same spot Lily once used for her unauthorized wedding tent. I thought about my mother's words but felt no pain, because what I'd lost had never truly been mine. The next day, Brandon texted, I called off the engagement. Thank you for giving me the courage to see things clearly. I stared at the message, feeling neither joy nor bitterness. Only one sensation cut through everything: relief. Not because Lily's engagement was canceled, but because finally, someone recognized what was right, and it didn't take me sacrificing myself for them to see it. 6 months drifted by like a quiet ray of sunlight. The old noise no longer spilled onto my porch on weekends. No more midnight laughter from the back lawn. No invitations, no chairs stacked across the yard, no strangers wandering inside asking for the bathroom as if I were the caretaker of my own life. The house had returned to the way I loved it the moment I first walked through the door. The lawn tended from scratch, the white picket fence repainted, the stone path cleared of leaves each morning. Every corner of the house was mine again, untouched, unshifted, unclaimed by anyone else. I sat in the wicker chair on the porch, cradling a cup of chamomile tea. The late afternoon sun filtered through the wind chimes, releasing a soft, tinkling song like the steady breath of someone waking from a long rest. The sea breeze brushed across my face like a quiet blessing. My family no longer came around. After that disastrous dinner, my mother mailed me an envelope containing 2 old keys, hers and my father's. No note, not a single word. I didn't feel hurt. I'd learned that silence is sometimes the only apology people like them can manage, and the only one I would accept. I took those keys to a metal shop and had them melted into a small steel block. It now sits on my bookshelf, between a photo of the beach at sunrise and a weathered brown leather notebook. Not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that once you shut a door for good, you can also choose to open another. Lily's life unfolded differently. After Brandon left, she moved back in with our parents in the suburban house where I grew up. Relatives told me she quit her job at the Savannah events firm and now helps at Aunt Marilyn's flower shop. No one mentioned the engagement again. No one mentioned me at family gatherings either. I don't blame them. Everyone protects themselves in their own way. Some speak the truth, some forget, some deny. I simply chose to live honestly with what I could no longer pretend. My work shifted too. After being promoted to head of strategic investments in April, I cut back on overtime, stepped away from endless meetings, and poured my focus into a project I'd long dreamed of: helping single women manage their finances and plan for property ownership. I also joined a Saturday morning yoga class, something I'd always thought I had no time for. That's where I met Mia, a retired doctor who loves brewing tea and brings along her fluffy white dog, Linda, a high school teacher who makes pottery, and Clara, my next-door neighbor, who once left muffins at my door all spring while I was too busy to thank her. Now, we rotate hosting brunch each weekend, bringing toasted bread, fresh fruit, and little stories from slower days. No one asks me about my family. No one labels me the successful sister. I'm just Olivia, the one who makes the best tea, with a quirky collection of vintage cookbooks. I'm not building a new community to replace the old. I'm just letting it arrive naturally, like sunlight slipping onto the porch after a storm. One evening, while jotting notes for my financial literacy course, my phone pinged. It was Brandon. "Hope you're doing well. I just finished moving to Asheville, back to teaching economics at my old school. If you're ever in town, let me know." I read the words a few times, then set the phone down. I didn't reply, but something light stirred inside me. Not regret, just a small kindness, finally finding its rightful place in memory. That night, I walked along the beach, waves lapping at my feet, wet sand pressing between my toes. In the distance, a family pitched a small tent, children laughing, the mother laying out a blanket, the father lighting a lantern. They didn't know who I was. No one snapped a selfie in front of a sign reading Olivia's Beach House anymore. I walked slowly, lifted my face, inhaled deeply. The salt in the air, the warmth of the sun still clinging to my hair, and something achingly familiar, the feeling of belonging. And I realized setting boundaries was never about leaving anyone behind. It was about returning to myself. No one is born to be background in someone else's story. Each of us has the right to write our own chapter, whether in pencil or ink, whether in applause or in silence. What do you think of my story? Have you ever had to draw a line with your own loved ones just to preserve your peace? Ever felt like a stranger in your own home, forced into silence to keep the peace, while it only chipped away at you? I don't share this for pity. I share it because I know so many people out there endure these small but constant cuts that wear down their trust, their dignity, their sense of self. If you're in that place, know this. Protecting your boundaries doesn't mean you love less. It means you love the right way, starting with yourself. Share your thoughts below. I want to hear your story, even a small piece of it, because maybe your voice could be the one someone else needs to hear. And if this story resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe so we can keep walking together through more honest slices of family, love, and the journey of reclaiming yourself, woven not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, everyday choices that shape a new life. Because sometimes it's in those everyday moments that a whole new life begins.